Buenas tardes. That's about all the Spanish I know. So the world's population is aging. We're all getting older, on the average. Each one of you is not getting older. In fact, each one of you is getting older, but the world's population is aging on the average, partly because birth rates are lower in the developed world, and also people are living longer because of better health care. And so let's look at some of the numbers. So according to the United Nations, these are the top 10 countries that have the most people who are living over 50 years old, okay? And as you can see, China has the most. It has almost 500 million people. But altogether, the top 10 countries in the world with people over 50 have about a billion people on Earth over 50 years old, and that number is going to grow. If we look at percentages, what we see is that last year, in 2015, when these statistics were compiled, the less developed regions of the world had about 20% people over 50, and the more developed regions, this includes Chile and the United States and Europe, had close to 40% of adults were over 50 years old. And in the year as you can see, these percentages are going to grow. They're going to grow. In the year 2025, it's going to grow to over 40% of the population will be above 50. And in 2035, it will be approaching half of the world's population will be over 50 years old. So these are numbers that this industry, design industry, cannot ignore. We're going to have to design equipment and software to fit the needs of these people, including me. So it's partly self-interest. Now, so the question you might ask is, well, how many of those people actually those people over 50 are using technology? Well, it's actually growing, and it's growing fast. So if you break down the percentage of the population using technology from 2000 to 2015, we can actually see that the over 65 age bracket is actually the fastest growing segment of the population. It starts out low, of course, but as we can see now, these are flattening out, all right? So the younger age groups are starting to flatten out. They're essentially achieving saturation, whereas the over 50, in fact, here we have over 65 age group is still climbing and will continue to climb. Now, if we break it down by what kind of equipment people are using, what we can see is that, well, just about everyone, this is the United States, okay? Now we're looking at US figures. So in the United States, basically, the mobile phone market is pretty close to being saturated, with almost 100% of all age groups having some kind of a mobile phone. But as you can see, if we start looking at a smartphone, there's a big split in age with the older set, over 65 group and over 50 group having significantly fewer smartphones than their younger counterparts. But when we look at computers, tablets, and e-readers, the differences are not as strong as with smartphones. Okay, but this is how it breaks down today. Now, okay, so we were looking at statistics. And yeah, everyone knows the statistics are great. They help us make business decisions. However, people react more strongly, almost universally, to anecdotal information. So here's some anecdotes for you. So these are quotes from comments that people wrote on the New York Times website underneath articles that were about technology and the future of technology, okay? So someone wrote, "A Mac laptop opened the world to me right here from my kitchen table. This is a blessing because my mobility is now extremely limited due to my physical disability." And then we have, "I can keep in touch now with people all over the world. I feel so connected to most of the world, art, music, comedy, humanity." By the way, I didn't say that these were articles about technology for older adults. So it has to be assumed that a lot of the people who were commenting were older adults. We don't really know, but that's the assumption. So the point I'm making here with some of these quotes is that technology can really help older adults. They are, ironically, they are the population segment, the age segment that is most, that could conceivably benefit most from technology, right? However, here's the last quote. "I can't imagine going back to life without a computer." But they can't do it if the technology does not meet their requirements, their needs, okay? So we see also these kind of comments on the same sites. "So much to remember. I wish they would stop changing things for no reason. What happened to the menus? How can I make the font bigger? I can't see it. Who thought thin gray letters was a good idea? My limitations frustrate me. I don't know where to get help. All the new technology is just so confusing. It's embarrassing to have to ask my grandkids help." Okay, so now, I just want, since most of the people in this room are probably under 50, I just want to make sure you realize that there is an argument floating around on the internet and in various publications that we don't need to really worry about older adults and designing for them because they're all going to die, right? And we are going to grow up and we're going to know technology, right? And so the problem will be solved, right, by our grandparents dying off. That's just a false argument. It's not true. It's not true for at least two reasons. One reason is that technology does not stand still. It continues to develop, okay? And so you are going to get stuck at today's technology, and 25 years from now, your children will be saying to you, "Mom, why do you keep Facebooking me? Nobody uses Facebook anymore. I use BrainLink. What are you doing with Facebook?" Okay, and then they'll roll their eyes. Okay, so that's one of the problems, is that today's older adults grew up with electromechanical technology, and so we are having a harder time adjusting to purely digital technology, okay? Yes, okay, we all admit it. But that doesn't mean that you are going to, the younger people of today are going to be instantly able to use all technology that comes along. No, you are going to get stuck at today's digital technology, and tomorrow we will have quantum technology, we will have machine learning, we will have many systems that are work very differently than systems today. So, and you're going to have to get used to them, and guess what? You're going to struggle. The other thing, though, the second reason that the argument that the technology for older adults problem will go away, the other reason that is a false argument is that there are age-related changes that we will all go through when we age, and those will impact our ability to use technology, especially if the technology is not designed to accommodate those growing disabilities. So now I want to make sure also that I don't sound like I'm saying, let's make technology useful and good for older adults and forget about those younger adults. That's not what I'm saying, because it turns out that many aspects of designing for older adults is just good design. And if you make the design better for older adults, you'll end up, in many cases, making it better for everyone. For example, how many 25-year-olds do you hear saying, gee, I really would like the fonts to be smaller? Or, gee, I really wish I had lower contrast screens. You know, you know, and the other thing is that handicaps or disabilities can be situationally dependent. So even young people can have trouble in some situations. Imagine yourself in a bus trying to use your cell phone. Maybe you don't have to imagine it. Maybe you got here on a bus trying to use your cell phone and the bus is bumping up and down, right? Or you know, maybe you're using your cell phone in a kind of an unusual situation, right? I mean, in fact, we just had a tremor, right? We just had a little tremor a little while ago, and so if you're going through one of those tremors and you're trying to use your iPad, you may have a little bit of trouble. So what we're looking for in design is the software equivalent of curb cuts. You see, curb cuts were put in the United States at least, due to laws that were passed in cities and states that required the existence of curb cuts in order to comply with laws allowing disabled people in wheelchairs to be able to get wherever they needed to go, all right? And that's why you have those ramps in the back of the room that I think would actually kill somebody if they actually went down those ramps. They're pretty steep. But anyway, so we have curb cuts, and here's the interesting thing about curb cuts. What do you think the percentage is of people who use curb cuts who are actually in wheelchairs? It's down below 5%. Okay? Most of the people who use curb cuts are people rolling strollers, people rolling shopping carts, people pulling roller bags, and bicyclists and skateboarders. Okay? Most of the people, okay? So curb cuts actually were put in to enhance the accessibility of the city to handicapped people, but in fact, they benefit everybody. So I'm going to talk about age-related changes and characteristics, and I'm going to cover them very quickly. Now, as I said, this talk is based on a book that's coming out in early next year, so I'm not going to cover everything in detail. You just have to buy the book. So in vision, there are all these kind of disabilities that grow in people. And again, I have to say, disabilities vary tremendously from one person to another. Age-related disabilities are one of the most variable developments that occur in human life, okay? And as you go older, and as you look at older and older swatches of the population, you see greater and greater variability. Like, for example, you probably have an uncle or an aunt or a grandparent who is 100 years old but doing fine, whereas there might be a 75-year-old who's on death's door, okay? So age does not necessarily predict these disabilities, but they do occur. They just occur in different people at different rates, and and I won't go through them all, but I'm going to cover some of them in detail. So for example, here's the website of Covered California, which is the California equivalent. It's the California portal for accessing Obamacare, okay? So it's fine. I'm not criticizing the website at all. What I want to do is show you what it looks like with, quote, normal vision, and then show you what it looks like if you have yellowing of the cornea and lens, which is, oops. yellowing of the cornea, which is here, farsightedness, and you forgot your reading glasses. By the way, I have to wear reading glasses. Glare sensitivity. Okay, now you may think, well, I don't have any of those, so I don't care about this talk. Well, what if you were out on your swimming pool trying to read your iPad and the sun was bearing down on you? Okay, so it's going to be glare. There's going to be a lot of glare. So you're going to be simulating this situation. Or what happens if you normally wear glasses or contact lenses and you forgot them, right? So all of these situations can arise essentially for people who are not necessarily what we would call old. So here's another example. So we got this news site, CNN news site, and for an iPhone, and this is what it might look like to someone who's gotten older. One of the things that's interesting is that the average 20-year-old, well, let me reverse it. The average 75-year-old needs 3 times as much light as a 20-year-old to see the same subjective brightness. 3 times as much light, okay? So a 75 or 80-year-old might see their screen looking like this when a 20-year-old would see it looking like that, okay? Well, how easy is that going to be to read? So the kind of visual design guidelines that come out of this are to maximize legibility of essential text, and there are certain font sizes that research says are sort of the minimal ones that you should use, mixed case, static text, ample line spacing, blah, blah, blah. I'm not here to tell you the guidelines. I'm just trying to give you an outline of what some of the issues are. So another kind of, so for example, at the Social Security website in the United States, Social Security is sort of the government system for giving people when you're working in the United States, you pay into Social Security all your life, and then it's an insurance program that gives you back that money when you're old and you're retired. And so at the Social Security site, which is aimed at older adults, okay, the target audience of this is older adults. So suppose you want to make the font larger. Well, it's easy. It's easy to make the font larger. All you have to do is you have to know that you have to go to the accessibility button. So you press the accessibility button, and then you get accessibility help, which you can start reading, and when you get down to the bottom, you can see this, I can't see very well. Okay, so you scroll down on the page, I can't see very well. If you have trouble with web pages, do this, magnify your screen, increase text size. Oh, there it is, that's what I want. I'll click that, okay? So you click that, and you get instructions on how to go into your browser's controls and increase the font size. That's not going to cut it. That is not going to be sufficient. So NIH Senior Health, on the other hand, is quite good. What they have is a resized text control with sort of obvious, so if you just click on one of those 3 letters, basically the font gets bigger, okay? That's how it works. Color. So use color judiciously, be cautious with blue versus green, and with blue and yellow next to each other because that sets up oscillations in the visual system. And if you're using color to mark links, visited versus not, make sure users can distinguish the colors. Avoid using color as the sole indicator. So if blue means something in your application and orange means something else, don't have a blue dot and an orange dot. Have a blue dot and a blue triangle and an orange dot so that something besides color is indicating the information. And then the book also includes things like what are the correct ratios of contrast ratios and that sort of thing. So this is not going to work for many older adults, and in fact many younger adults as well, because they're just not going to be able to see the text that is displayed, like the text right here, the text right here, and the text right there, okay? The Apple iPhone has a weather page. The seniors that we actually have studied, my business partner and I have studied in senior homes, they cannot see these letters here that indicate the low temperature. And then this thing down here at the bottom, whatever that is, I don't even know what it is, they can't see it at all, okay? It's not there. On the other hand, Bank of the West's homepage is it uses good high contrast and large fonts by default. You don't have to even make them bigger. So I think it's clean and well designed. And AMD, the website for people who have age-related macular degeneration, which is your retina starts to die, basically. So you lose vision. So at their website, first of all, they're using large fonts with high contrast. But if you want to, you can click that button at the top and actually make the contrast even higher. Okay? So they've sort of figured it out for their audience. So another visual design guideline is to simplify. Just basically don't put information up there that is not needed. So the Android voice recorder is a good example. It's about as simple as you could possibly be, right? Now let's talk about motor control. Motor control does reduce over a person's age in various ways that are listed here. So one of the things that does happen is when we talk about pointing with a mouse or pointing with our finger on a touch screen or pointing with our nose or pointing with anything, there's something called Fitts' law that governs, basically, that predicts how the motion goes. And what Fitts' law says is that when you tell someone to point at a particular target, what happens is their movement starts out very fast, it accelerates to a high rate, the movement starts out really fast, and the term is ballistic. It moves very fast at first, and then it slows down and adjusts at the end in order to hit the target. Okay, so the profile of the movement over time looks like this. Wham, fast movement, then slow movement with small adjustments, then you hit the target, okay? And the bigger the target, the faster you can move because the less you need to adjust at the end. Now, what happens when you compare younger adults with older adults is that what we see is that their older adults' motion is slower in the first place. It doesn't achieve the high velocity that younger adults' motion achieves. And there is more adjustment over time. The deceleration is slower. The deceleration is less. So the impacts of motor control changes are these. That basically, older adults have difficulty manipulating small objects, using stylus or pointing objects, and difficulty with continuous movements like click, drag, tap, hold, pinch, spread, double tap. Those gestures they don't work for older adults. Problems executing coordinated gestures, increase variance in movement. So just because, let's say I'm 75 or 80 years old, just because I can execute a double tap spread now doesn't mean I'll be able to execute it in 5 minutes. Okay, all right. So one of the tests that physical therapists give to people who are aging and starting to show hand-eye coordination problems is called the spiral test. So you ask someone to draw a spiral that looks like this one on the right. And this is a spiral that's drawn by someone with hand tremors. All right, and so let me show you a little video here of someone doing that. First we'll do that, and then we'll show you the video. Go over there. So that's someone trying to draw the spiral. Okay, and so that can manifest itself in lots of different ways, but one of the ways that older adults having trouble with physical movements can manifest itself is in the use of what are called pull-right menus or cascading menus, okay? So here is a video of a usability test that my business partner and I did. We did a study of people using, older adults trying to use travel websites to book trips, okay? And this is there's a whole segment of the travel industry in the United States that's aimed at people over 50, because older people in the United States have money and time, so they travel, okay? And so there's companies out there that want to get their money, and so they build websites and try to lure these people in. But unfortunately, the websites don't work too well for this population. So this woman is trying to find a trip to Kenya, okay? She's trying to find a trip to Kenya. So I want you to watch what happens.
So like when I went up here to, to get the country first, I went up here to go to, go up here to this bouncing around a Kenya thing here. Okay, so I went in here, down Africa. It's taken me like 5 times to click on country.
So one of the things that often happens when I give these talks is that people come up to me after the talk and they say, forget old people, I have trouble with that. And, and then some of the people who do that are clearly old, and I just keep my mouth shut. So this is that menu before, and after the usability test, this is what they did. Actually, we recommended that they get rid of those cascading menus, but what they did was they increased the width of the menu, which actually didn't resolve the problem, but it made it easier. So the guidelines that come out of it are these, promote accurate, precise selection of targets, make click targets large, provide blank space around targets, etc. So, in our book, we based on the research that we've read, what we did was we put together guidelines on exactly how small or big click targets should be, whether depending on whether they're desktop or touchscreen, okay? One of the things that we see often that doesn't work is companies that create navigation bars and websites in which it looks like they have buttons up at the top, but they don't really have buttons. What they have, you have to click, at the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, you have to click on the word banking. You can't click anywhere else. Even though there's a big blue button there with a border around it, you can't click anywhere on that button. You have to click the word banking, the word research, the word markets, okay? So that means the click target is a lot smaller than it should be. Whereas at Elder Law Answers, you can click anywhere in that button, and you will go to the Learn More session. The other thing is to keep input gestures simple and don't require double click, no drag, avoid multi-level menus, and make menus stay open long enough for people with low motor skills. Let's talk about speech now. I'm going to play some sounds for you. I apologize if this hurts some of your ears. So the first sound is a sound that's 8 kilohertz. Everyone should be able to hear this sound if the sound system is working correctly. So let me try to, if I turn this on, raise your hand if you hear it. Okay, all right. So now here's one that's at 12 kilohertz. If you're over 50, you might not be able to hear it. Okay, so people can hear it, okay? Now this one is 16 kilohertz. If you're over 20, you might not be able to hear this one. I can't hear this one at all. I can sort of hear this one. I can definitely hear this one. This one, it might as well, I have to always check with someone younger to me to find out if this is actually working. Okay, here we go. Raise your hand if you hear it. Oops. No. I didn't mean to do that. Sorry. Okay, here we go. Okay, so you heard. So no. And as I said, it varies tremendously. It varies tremendously by age. So for example, I was giving a talk at Stanford a couple of months ago, and Stuart Card, who is like a retired researcher who's like 70, 75 years old, raised his hand. He heard the 20-year-old sound, okay? I can't even approach hearing it, okay? So the interesting thing about that sound is it's called Mosquito Tone. It has a name. It's called Mosquito Tone, and it's used both for teenagers and against them. So for teenagers, what teenagers do is they buy that sound and they put it on their phone as a ringtone. So when they're in the class, they're not supposed to have a phone in the class. So when it rings, their teacher can't hear it. Okay. However, on the other side of that, liquor stores play this sound in front of the store, and no teenagers will come there. Okay. So the guidelines that come out of that are these. Make audible signals in a range most people can hear, and the book gives the range that you should use, and use lower frequency voices, and avoid short chirps and beeps to help localization, okay? Also to convey important information in multiple ways. So for example, using captions on videos so that people can hear what is being said, okay? Now, there are also cognitive changes that occur with age, attention, learning, and memory. So there's reduced short-term memory and attention span, and there's reduced short-term memory and attention span, and there's reduced short-term memory and attention span. No, okay. So I'm not that old, really. So there's reduced ability to multitask and other kinds of changes that occur. And so one of the things that you can do is to just avoid having things be so complicated. So listen to this person who was one of the people in our travel study.
At this point, I would call them. This is so overwhelming.
Okay.
I would call them and say, help.
Okay, so now here's another kind of thing that's sort of cognitive. It has to do with something in cognitive psychology called change blindness. Suppose you're using this travel site and you're looking down here and you're saying, look, okay, my trip is going to be on February 27, 2016 to March 14, 2016. You know what? I don't want that date. I want a different date. So let me change the date. So you change the date to February 11th, 2017. And what you may not realize is that the price over here just went up from $39.99 to $42.99. And reason that's off in your peripheral vision, and also your attention is focused here. Okay, so the change you made is down here, yet the price changes up there. That's not good. So the cognitive guidelines are these. You know, design for conceptual and visual simplicity, help people maintain focus, present one task at a time, eliminate distractions. So you don't want a website that does this, like drugstore.com, which, by the way, is aimed at older adults. All right, so this is not going to work for the population that they're targeting. Yep. This will work. This is much simpler. There's one call to action on this screen. Kayak is actually pretty good. It doesn't have many calls to action. People can focus in on what they're trying to do, which is buy an airline ticket or something. Then then we finally come to what we started out talking about, which is knowledge differences. Differences in what people today know about technology versus what people tomorrow, next year, next decade, next century will know about technology. These are the things, this is the chapter in my book that I'm going to have to rewrite in 20 years if I'm still alive. Maybe one of you will rewrite that chapter for me because I'll be dead. But in any case, so people today are unfamiliar with digital technology jargon and icons. They don't know the control objectors. They don't know they have antiquated mental models that are based on electromechanical technology. But here's the thing, being old is not all bad. You know more about the world. And that actually allows you to compensate in many situations. Search tasks studies of older adults versus younger adults doing search tasks find that older adults generally do better than younger adults at search tasks because older adults know more about what to put into the search engine. Okay? But vocabulary is not familiar, you will lose your audience. Like, enter a correct CAPTCHA for displayed above. What? CAPTCHA? What's that? Or this one. You know, it can be subtle. A new update is available. In this version, you will have the option to select between light and dark UI themes from the settings menu. Does your grandmother know what a UI theme is? Right? Or this one. It doesn't always have to be textual, right? It's a problem of lack of consistency. These three mobile apps use different symbols. That's the menu symbol on this app. That's the menu symbol on this app. That's the menu symbol on this app. What's the menu symbol? You know, if there's no consistency, how is anyone supposed to figure out where they click to get a menu? The UPS website is well designed and it uses good vocabulary. So there are also age-related differences in attitude that people have about technology. Older adults studies have shown that they're less comfortable with technology. I should say we. More risk-averse, afraid of breaking something, and reluctant to give personal information out over the internet, interwebs, as I guess they call it, okay? So here's an example of somebody basically giving up on a task.
So at this point, if you were, really looking for a trip, what would you do next if we weren't here? What do you think?
I would screw this. I would say, if I can't get to what I want in reasonable tries, then I don't want to go to this company.
I don't want to go with this company. They just lost a customer. So the guidelines for attitude, for making sure that your application fits older adults' attitude is to be flexible in how users can enter and save and view data. So for example, don't do this and require them to say, I entered the phone number like this, but it says it has to be numeric. It is numeric. I just put dashes in it. Okay? Or this one, so this is better, actually. You can enter the number in any format you want. It doesn't care, okay? And then finally, inspire trust. Your application should try to overcome the inherent lack of trust that older people have in the technology. So here's an example. I'll show you two examples. One of them is this one. You're trying to sign up for Philippine Airlines frequent flyer registration. What are your favorite sports? What? Why do you need to know my favorite sports? I'm just trying to sign up for a frequent flyer card. Right? Or this one. This is a news site. Several eyewitnesses and family of witnesses initially said 3 athletic Caucasian men had been blah, blah, blah. Click on athletic, Pizza Hut. Right? That's not going to inspire trust. So a summary of my talk, basically, is this. So the percentage of older adults is increasing globally. There are age-related characteristics that can contribute to a lack of ease of use in using technology. And if you don't design for older adults, you're going to exclude people from the benefits of today's digital culture. And I think that designing for older adults can improve usability for everyone. So that's the book, and I'm pleased to accept your questions.